Mining update, lesson about the industry and job hunt video. Welcome to Australian Mining for New Starters, and today we're going to go through the prices. I've been asked a question about advancement, climbing the ladder through the crew, so we're going to talk about that in our lesson about the industry, and then we're going to do a job hunt video at the end using the 4 normal keywords that we use of underground, surface, offsider and utility. So let's start. And we'll jump straight over to the gold price. So again, this is the gold price that if you were to go down to the Perth Mint or you were going to buy at the spot price somewhere, this is what it's actually going to cost you. So it's still well above $3,700 an ounce. I think the spot price is roughly about $3,700 an ounce, or $701 Australian. So it's just a little bit under the $2,500 US. Copper is $13,662, so that's gone down a little bit, but it's still quite high for Australian dollars. And if we move over to iron ore, you have a look that it's gone back up a little bit, so it's back up over $100. So that's the iron ore price. And if we come over to coal, we can see it's $121.30 a tonne. And I just want to come back down to this graph, which really sums up what's going on in coal. And as you can see, this is 2022, and if we come up to the top here, it's $395 a tonne, and that was on the 11th of the 7th, 2022. And so that's pretty much the top up there, and then it's come all the way down to $121. So significant falling there. So let's go over and have a look at our map, and let's talk about our lesson. So the advancement going up through the ranks. So people start entry level, and the best advice I've got, especially if you're talking about the underground side of things of where you can go, it's all about doing your job properly, getting a result. So making sure you get, if you truck driver, getting your tons. If you're a nipper, making sure that you're keeping up with all the jobs, that sort of stuff. That's how you get noticed. The other thing that you can do too is if you want to progress through. When I was shift bossing, I always liked everybody to be able to do all the jobs below them, but also to be able to do the job directly above them. And when you get the person to do the job directly above them, it gives you a lot of freedom as a shift boss to move people around, and it gives you a lot of flexibility when you've got holidays and people going out sick and all that sort of wonderful stuff. So it's in your best nature, your best interest to have a lot of people trained on a lot of things, but it's a lot harder than it's a lot harder to do that especially when you've got production issues that you've got to meet constantly. So you can't just throw somebody onto a bogger and not get any tons out. So you have to do it in a certain way. And one of the ways that's traditionally done is there's a lot of overtime done. So if you're a truck driver, then you might stay in and do some extra days and do that on service crew. If you're service crew, you might stay in and do some extra days, and you might do that training up on the bogger. That's traditionally how it's done. You fill in on other crews, and then you can fill in on your own crew once you get the experience. If you tend to wait until the thing gets presented to you and you don't actively go and ask about getting some extra training and all that sort of stuff, sometimes it'll just seem like it's all passing you by. And the reason that is that they're looking for proactive people, and there's more than enough people that will come through and ask about training where they really don't have to chase people for that sort of stuff. And so if you're happy just to sit in a truck, then a lot of companies will be happy for you just to sit in a truck. So you just have to be a little bit proactive about it. And the best way that I found over the years to be proactive about it is doing the overtime shifts. And traditionally when you do the overtime shifts, the understanding normally is that you're sort of helping them sort out a problem by doing some overtime shifts, and you're getting some training to balance all that up again. And so that's how, there's lots of ways to go about moving up as well. Sometimes it's best to move to a big mining town, so you can go through the ranks quite quickly, say around Kalgoorlie, because there's a lot of mines looking for a lot of people. Whereas if you get stuck on a big flagship mine that's got a lot of people on it, and a lot of people want to get into it because it's good conditions and they're paying all right, then sometimes it can take a long time to move up through the ladder doing those sort of jobs. So it just depends on where you are as well and your happiness to move. While these days, back in my day, a lot of people would jump across companies. Now a lot of the companies have got a number of different mine sites, so there's a lot of opportunities that come up on other mine sites around the country and around the world for a lot of of these companies that if you've got your head screwed on right and you're doing the right thing, then the chance of promotion will come up. And if you're prepared to move for a promotion, that'll go around. And especially if you're working out and you're feeling, you're doing a good job in the places that you go, then often, I know a lot of people now that have worked for the same company for 20 years, but they're sort of on their 6th or 7th different mine site with that company. Very rarely do you jump onto a mine site and stay on that mine site, your whole mining career. That's sort of normally down to people that are from a small country town that the mine's located near. So you get those sort of situations, but if jumping into it because you want to be a professional miner and this is what you want to do for the next 20 years, you sort of need to be a bit flexible about where you go and what you have to do to get the work. You got to chase the work sometimes. So that's what I would do with climbing the ladder. Obviously do a good job to start with. Make sure you're achieving all your targets that you've got to achieve, and then look at doing some overtime and make sure that everybody knows that you in the right places above you, your shift boss and the bogger operator and all that sort of stuff. Make sure that they want you to know, make sure that they know that you want to be trained up and you want to have a go at it all. And it's pretty easy to do some, if you're learning the bogger, sometimes it's easy to do some self-loading at crib time, that sort of stuff. It just depends. I used to, in the end of the afternoon, if I had somebody that had a bit of experience in the truck and they were learning the bogger and we were close to target and I had all the, we were having a good day and we had all the loads out, I'd take the truck up for a load or two and let them, sort of do a round of trucks or 2 rounds of trucks and load them up. But again, it was all about being in a position where I wasn't going to hurt the result for the day by doing the training. So that's what you got to remember too. You got to put yourself in a position where you're not going to kill production by doing training. I know you have to do training to keep production up, but you can't kill it by doing it either. There's got to be a balance. So just be a bit flexible about it all. Understand there's got to be a balance and take the opportunities when they get handed to you. Don't be scared of it. If someone wants you to have a go, jump in and have a go. That's the best advice that I've got. Alright, so let's have a look at our job hunt videos side of things. So let's have a look at underground. So if we type underground into Seek, and there's lots of jobs coming up all over the country. Entry level truck and nipper, underground, entry level for Barminco, entry level truck Northern Star, Evolution again. Everybody's looking for people all over the country, and I can't reiterate this enough, that all these companies, the reason that they've got all these job ads up is because, unfortunately, when people go in green, so they don't know anything about mining on day one, they turn over more than 50% of those people. It's not about teaching you the practical sides of the jobs. Teaching you the practical sides of the jobs is really easy. What everybody struggles with is learning enough about what's going on around you so you can be left alone. If they've got to pay somebody to stand there next to you to make sure that you're doing the right thing, you're not going to be there for very long because the pressure's going to be ramped up quite severely. So you either quit or you get up to speed, one of the two. So the best thing that you can do is to educate yourself before you go, and then that way you can jump in and hit the ground running. And the same rules that they use underground are the same on the surface. So if you're trying to get a surface job, you can use the training to do that. The only problem with the surface jobs is that there all seem to be drillers offsider jobs these days. There's not that many truck driving jobs going. You'll see, with this one, it's all offsiders jobs. There's a few production jobs going, but they're looking for experienced truck drivers. There's no real entry-level stuff on the surface that much anymore, unfortunately, because of all the driverless trucks and the downturn in nickel and lithium and the big iron ore mines that they've closed over here in WA, that Mineral Resources Limited and Nickel West that the BHP is shuttering. There's a lot of big open pit mines that are being put into care and maintenance that were using drivers that, are all going to be looking for work now. So it is what it is regarding that. Then if we go on to the drillers offsiders, lots of work here, both surface and underground. And I know I say this every time, but if you want to work on the surface, you better like camping. If you don't like camping, then underground's probably the better way to go. But lots of jobs around, lots of work everywhere. Everybody's looking for people. A lot of places are going, for the entry-level people, are going back to 2 and 1. That's got more to do with bums in seats at the moment. If they do a 2 and 1 roster opposed to an even time roster, they need a quarter less people than they would normally need. But I don't know how long that's going to last because, it can be classed as a safety issue. That's the reason why a lot of these mine sites are even time rosters, is because that's the way the clients want it. So this will work all right until people start hurting themselves, and then it'll get looked at very harshly. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these companies are forced to go back to week on, week off, opposed to the 2 and 1, because that's how we ended up with week on, week off in the first place. So lastly, let's have a look at utility, and it's a bit interesting, the utility work, because as we've been talking about, the number of utility jobs have shrunk significantly, considering that the shutdown circuit and the civil circuit and all that sort of stuff has shrunk as well. So everything shrunk significantly, and you can see it in the wages that people are offering for full time. So that's 71 to 76 for the coalfields, and this is 68 for Queensland again. This is extremely high for a utility worker. I would say that would be the top rate, and they're just putting that in there just to try and get people through the door. But yeah, you've got most people are starting as a utility job on about that $75,000 to $80,000 a year on a 2 and 1 roster, which works out to be between $25 and $27 an hour, which isn't very good, considering that most people are starting on between $38 and $42 an hour in an underground job. So there's a lot more money involved, and there's a lot more scope of advancement involved if you go into the production side of things. And I know I talk about it, I've talked about it a lot before, but if you're thinking about getting a utility job and then making the jump over to a production job, using your contacts that you make doing that job, unfortunately you need to have a look at the poaching rules. That pretty much stops everybody dead. It ties all the boss's hands, so you have to go off site for 6 months before you can come back on site with a new company, and that's written into most of the contracts that all these companies sign when they go to work for these mining companies. So if you want to jump into the industry, I suggest you have a look at the 3-step plan package. It's got all the information that you need in there to learn how it all works. You can click onto these PDF files and open them up and have a quick look. It goes through all the stuff that you're going to learn about the training. In the training, that you're going to learn about how the mine works. And that's the other thing that I would talk to people about if you've just jumped into the industry and you're on a truck and you've just been shown about a truck, then the DIY package for $495, it can be a really good package to buy, because it's going to teach you a lot of stuff that you're still being drip fed. And the longer it takes you to get up to speed with them drip feeding you stuff, the harder it is to work your way through the ranks. And so the whole idea behind the training that we put together was to give a new starter a really good understanding of how it all worked and what was going to be expected of them on site. And it's the same thing with if you've just jumped into it and you're having trouble jumping up through the ranks, then you've got all this stuff that's going to help you learn about it all in the production mining side of things. In the first basic mine site operation course, we show you how we blast the face and how all that works and how a shot goes off. And often, you don't get shown that sort of stuff until you've been underground for a couple of years. And it's the same with the service crew work. We go through how to put polypipe together and hang knocker line and joint vent bag and all stuff that you get shown on the job in the first 6 months. But if you're not, it can be a real handy thing to have it, explained well and shown to you before you actually go and do the job. And that way you've got a really good understanding. And that's how people that do this training get promoted quite quickly, because they've done the service crew component and they've done the underground truck. When they get their chance to go onto service crew, sometimes it looks like a duck to water, and that's all you need sometimes to progress up through the ranks quite quickly. So I would suggest that if you're in and you've got in for you're 2 or 3 months already and you're wanting to advance and you're finding hard to learn a bit of information, then this can be a really good way to do it. But yeah, it is what it is, and the more you know, the more you learn, the easier it is to advance. And sometimes on mine sites, the problem can be to try and get people to teach you stuff. Because I know when I first started, the attitude used to be, if I teach you how to do that job, then that's one less job that I can get. I know that attitude's changed quite a lot in the last 20 years, or the last 30 years since I've been in the industry, but it probably still is there a little bit to a certain extent. So sometimes you can find it hard to be trained up on stuff on mine sites, especially if they're under the pump for production. I know I talked about that before, but if they're under the pump for production, it can be really hard to get trained sometimes, because every time they train somebody, production takes a hit. So you've got to be able to work out a way of doing it without production taking a hit. So yeah, that's what I think about going up through the ladder, and what you have to do to sort of make yourself get that experience. And like I said, a lot of overtime helps. But yeah, just being a good worker that gets the job done and being reliable, that also helps a lot as well. So I hope you found that information helpful, and happy Father's Day to everybody. And if you could share this video around and like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks.